All right, folks, welcome in JE Live. The man next to me needs no introduction. He is Andrew Whitworth, a Rams legend, future Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion. I'm giving you an introduction at this point because you just got so many damn accolades. Of course, Man of the Year. I mean, you're doing a kick-ass job on TV with Amazon Prime. I'm seeing you in all sorts of commercials. Whit, how you doing, man?
I don't know what's happening with that. That's craziness, right? But it's been good, man. No complaints. I've every year it's a little weird still not being in NFL locker rooms and playing football, but figuring out that next chapter of your career and life is really cool. So it's been a lot of fun, getting a chance to coach my kids in sports and just hang out with the family and take some trips, and then also still stay close enough to the game to be there every week on Thursday Night Football with NFL on Prime and get to see guys on the sidelines and coaches and everything in pregame. And then obviously, stay close to some of those guys and coaches you got a chance to be with while you played. So it's been fun, man. Football's still a very deep part of our life as a family, but at the same time, we're enjoying the other side of it. I love being an analyst and getting to talk about the game, because the best part about our job, Jake, and you know this well, we got all the answers and zero accountability, baby. We don't have to fall for any of this. Nobody's going to fire us for our takes, right? So we can say whatever we want. So I enjoy this side of it. I get to just say and feel how I want, and sometimes those emotions get one way or the other, but it's a blast, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had our back and forths on Twitter, and I think people were like, "Yeah, you two hate each other." Nah, we're just very passionate, fired up, and we DM each other. So it is what it is. Like, obviously, people are gonna think that, but man, just watching you, throughout this year, Thursday Night Football and what you've been doing. Obviously, the commercials are cool, but I don't want to minimize. Yeah, you could say whatever you want, but you've been doing a really good job about it. And then I also want to throw out some props, but also a shout out here. Link is in the description. People can check out your podcast with Fitz. It's great, man. Fitz and Wit podcast. Below.
I'm a little mad it's not Wit and Fitz podcast, but hey, well, I'll rock my mug today.
There is,
listen, I already told him. I think I'm going to get one made that just says Wit and Fitz, even though that's not the name of the show, just because that's how I feel about it. All right.
Hey, I once did that with my cousin. It was the AJ show, and people are like, "Wait, why is your cousin coming before you? We know you. We don't know your cousin." It's like, hey, it is what it is, man. And obviously, Fitz, great career, but great show. And I really like what you're doing. But obviously, we got to talk about just your time with the Rams before we get into the Rams, and just your time in the NFL, because it's funny. You can barely see it peeking out, the Kansas Jayhawk banner. I was a big fan of Anthony Collins, coming out of KU.
All right.
And he was a teammate
AC,
of
baby.
yours. Yeah, he was a teammate of yours. And I think either you went down or he played on the other side. But so I followed, early on in your career, because I was such a big fan of Anthony and that KU team. And so, I watched a lot of those Bengals games. So I've been watching you for a while. And when I remember just finding out that you were coming to the Rams, I was like, this doesn't happen. We don't get Andrew Whitworth coming through the door. This organization just doesn't do that. And that's what I knew. McVay was my hand-picked coach. That's who I wanted. Even when Fisher was there, I was like, I'm telling you, I don't care that he's 30 years old. He's just different. I just have a feeling. And then, you come in, and then they get Robert Woods, who I wanted. And I'm like, okay, things are really starting to feel different. What was the feeling kind of going into that? I mean, you did take a leap of faith. You took a risk. I mean, if you were listening to guys on TV, they would have told you, hey, this is a frat boy. This isn't a head coach. So, how did you feel coming into that?
Yeah, it was a really unique experience for me, because I've been in the league for 11 years and only in Cincinnati, had been a captain there the majority of my career. Had been an all-pro. It had a lot of success. Had won a bunch of division titles. We hadn't found a way to win that playoff game. I think I was 0-6 at that time in the playoffs. But, we had a lot of success, and it really had a pretty young team at the time compared to others in the league. And so to walk away from it, really we'd had one bad year where we lost, a lot of our coaches there, kind of had what has happened to the Rams some, and that, Mike Zimmer moves on, Jay Gruden moves on, Hugh Jackson moves on. They all become head coaches. And so, you have a little bit of that attrition in your staff and you have one bad year. And then I kind of had a wild ride with the organization in Cincinnati and was looking for, hey, do I want to continue here or not? Just because the last year they had drafted some guys and made some decisions, and now all of a sudden it hasn't worked out and they want me back. And then, I knew Sean McVay, it's those relationships you talk about. This is a relationship based business, is that Jay Gruden was our, offensive coordinator. And I went to the combine one year. And I think it was when Sean was getting into coaching, and he was sitting down with Jay talking about, where his next job would be and what he was going to go do, and, where he was trying to get in. And we met, and that was really the one time we had met. And so then when I was a free agent, I was like, man, I thought this dude was really impressive. I loved his vibe. Like, we had a cool vibe just the first time we met. Obviously got a lot of respect for Jay Gruden, because Jay and I had known each other for a long time, and him being my OC. So when really the opportunity came, I was like, man, all right, like, I've always kind of wanted to live on the West Coast and check it out. I've never really been to LA. I'm a Louisiana kid, who moved to Ohio for 11 years. And so my wife and I were like, you know what, it's interesting. And then there was a lot of teams, from the Jets to the Vikings to LA, all over, that, we were blown away to be 35 years old and have all these teams that are interested in you coming for a couple of years and trying to play left tackle. And obviously the leadership, being a captain, all those type things, so it was humbling. And, as we just kept chewing on it, it was really that opportunity that there was something special about this young coach who wants to do it a different way. His commitment, really, and his urgency for, like, how he saw the vision of what building a successful franchise looks like in the NFL, the passion he had for what it means to chase greatness every single day. I look at it like I always tell people, like, all of us in life know that person that when they walk in a room, they can say 3 words and we're like, man, I just feel better about who I am or what it is that we're going to accomplish that day, or like whether or not this is going to happen for this person. We're like, man, everything always good just happens for them. And they have this positive. Sean McVay was that guy. You're just like, man, somehow he wills things into existence with just his relentless passion to be great. And you feel it. And it's infectious. And so when I got a chance to meet him and realize this was going to be the opportunity, we wanted, we decided to sell our house and move our entire family of 4 to LA, thinking that you're giving up your chance to chase a Super Bowl. You're giving up your chance to go to the playoffs, because I'd been to the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. And you thought you were walking away from that. And lo and behold, the game will humble you in good and bad ways faster than you ever realize. That's for sure. And so to end up going to 2 Super Bowls, winning a bunch of division titles, and then finally winning a Super Bowl, epic, man. And as Sean and I say all the time, there's good time friends, there's all time friends. Him and I will be all time friends for life. That brotherhood will exist forever, and it still does today. And so it's one of the most valuable parts of my life is still my relationship with the Rams organization, and how they've continued to treat me, and the love that goes back and forth for what we were able to accomplish together.
Yeah, I mean, you guys accomplished a ton. And, I just think back to, when the Rams had Orlando Pace, and obviously I was younger, but, I've gone back and I've watched games and what have you. And, when they got Pace, that was kind of their cornerstone, right? They traded up to get him, all of that. When they got you, that was their cornerstone. I mean, obviously, Todd Gurley, I always say, is the engine of the offense.
Oh, man, no doubt.
Early on, I ended up meeting Todd at LAX. It was really cool. Just wish he had a better ending. That's all. I hate injuries, and it was really unfortunate. But, I just feel like just the job that you did. I mean, there was a moment in the St. Louis Rams era, and everybody knows that has been following the Rams, know exactly where I'm going with this, when they signed Jake Long. And you kind of got a little bit of an idea, like, okay, they're giving Sam Bradford, a left tackle that is going to protect his blind side, and maybe something will come of this. And, I feel bad for Jake, but, there was a preseason game where, a third string pass rusher beats him, and it ends up injuring Sam Bradford. At that point, people are like, man, you just can't catch a break. We're never going to find another Orlando Pace. And I don't mean to discredit Pace, but I'm like, Andrew Whitworth was as good as having Orlando Pace. I mean, you should go into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, we'll see how things go. I call you a future Hall of Famer. I think a lot of people would agree. I wanted to ask you, though. Well, first off, I want to ask you real funny thing about the Cowboys. And I'm sure you remember it was 2022. And there was like, I don't know if a Cowboys fan or or beat writer or whatever, but they were like talking about how they could get you out of retirement. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
First off, I know you retired as a Ram, so obviously they would have had to like trade you or whatever, however that works. But I guess I want to ask if you ever considered coming out of retirement since you retired, because I felt like you were pretty damn sure after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that it was never a chance of me coming out. It was actually, you know, I had agreed to join the Thursday Night Football crew, the NFL on Prime team, and which has been an amazing decision. But it was our preseason game, and Tyron Smith, I believe, had just gotten hurt. And Kaylee Hartung, who I've known for my entire life, we've been, you know, close friends. She was in high school when I was at LSU, and her mom actually, you know, worked for an organization with LSU football. And so I've known Kaylee forever. And so we were kind of having a sideline interview that it was a preseason game, NFL on Prime's first ever really, you know, time streaming and doing all this. And so we're kind of working out the kinks. I think it's Texans 49ers in the preseason. And so we're just looking for something to do. And she wants to do a sideline interview. So they're like, hey, can Kaylee interview you? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And so we did a sideline interview, and she asked me, had anybody, you know, reached out or whatever with Tyron Smith going down? And I answered honestly, like, yeah, I've definitely had some people reach out. Now, to me, that meant like there's media members of the Dallas Cowboys organization. Obviously, we all know every team kind of has their beat writers and their insiders and all that have reached out to express my interest. And no, the answer is no. There was zero interest whatsoever. You know, and so in that moment, I think, you know, it became such a story. I think Florio and Pro Football Talk, like, you know, posted it, and then, you know, basically, you know, it's like, hey, it could be tampering because technically I'm like, you know, I'm still a retired player for the Rams, which was funny. And then he obviously sent some choice, you know, Florio gets all hot and bothered. So he sends something about how if I'm going to work in media, I better, you know, learn, you know, whatever word it was about inferring or something, whatever it was, which is great, you know. So it's funny. It's interesting to me, like, you know, that became such a thing. And I had zero interest in coming back, but, you know, on the Florio take, it's funny, man. It's the tough part of this business, the media stuff and emotions that kind of get out of hand. Because I think sometimes when you see former players arguing on a set, or you see guys like going at each other about something they're passionate about, you have to understand that we played a game where we went to absolute war against each other. Like, I'm trying to drive your face into the ground. But after the game, I'm going to give you a hug, and it's going to be like, what's up, dude? Love you. Good to see you. I got so much respect for you. So, like, there's always going to be this level. Now, obviously, there's guys that don't like each other. All right, that exists in the league, all right? But there's always going to be this mutual level of respect. And so what's funny, it came out of that story is like Flory and I having this tiff on Twitter or whatever it was, you know, about that, and him saying all that is that, like, in my position in the league as a captain and a leader, like any young guy that came in the league, I'm not there to trash them or tell them what they need to figure out. Like, I'm there to like help them be at their best, find this version of them that makes them happy and content with who you are as a player. And so I was just so bothered and irritated that, like, dude, you're like a media guy who's at the top with Pro Football Talk, and like your choice is to come at me at Twitter and tell me what I need to do better. Like, bro, give it a rest. Like, calm down. Like, who are you at the end of the day? Like, come on. Get it all in your feelings if you want to. I could care less. Like, I could absolutely care less. I'm just trying to find my next chapter in life. That became a bigger story than it was, but it was just a simple, some Dallas media members had reached out and asked if I had any interest, and the answer was no. Now, if the Rams would have had a good season that next year and maybe had a chance, now that would have been the only chance that there was, is me possibly coming back for that. But after I experienced a year of no pain, Jake, and being able to like make it to the bathroom in the mornings without having to put both my hands on the wall and guide myself there, I realized that it was over. I'm done. I'm enjoying being retired.
Hey, I mean, I saw it. I think we all saw it, you know, whether you're at the game in person or, you know, watching it on TV. After you guys won the Super Bowl, you could just see it. I mean, you got the perfect ending, but keep in mind, while you might have had the perfect ending, you had to earn the perfect ending. You worked for that. And that's the thing where, and there would have been no judgment if you retired after the first Super Bowl. But when guys get up there in age, I mean, it happens. I mean, Aaron Donald retired, and I'm sure he has plenty of football left in the tank. I mean, I don't think anybody would say, you know, he doesn't. But the fact that you continued on after that Super Bowl and you won it and you stuck with it, and that 2019 season, first time or the last time in this 6-team playoff format, you guys would have made it in the 7-team playoff format. No one talks about that. No one cares. But hey, I mean, it's they've always been one of these teams where as long as McVay's coaching, you got, Stafford now at quarterback, but obviously Goff at the time. I mean, you feel like with McVay, they got a chance that they get into the tournament. I mean, it's really that simple. So, credit to you, obviously, for sticking it out. And, you got that ending, and that was awesome. And let's be honest here, you had to go up against the Bengals. And say what you will about that team. Joe Burrow was sacked like 8 or 9 times in that game. They kept coming at you guys. And then, Trey Hendrickson, we see what he's doing, right? So, it was, you didn't go up against some pushovers.
Nothing like your last game being against, nothing like your last game ever being against one of the most best up and coming rushers in the NFL. I'll never forget being like, man, I know this is my swan song. This is it. Like, I'm done. This is the final game. And thanks a lot. I got to go against Trey Hendrickson. But no, that was a fun experience, an amazing game. So surreal, man. Like to have the opportunity to play for 2 franchises your entire career, to have a huge impact, on really being a starter and being a part of the community for both places, to have so many, relationships and things that were, I'll feel forever from playing both places. Like the city of Cincinnati will forever be a home to me, and so will Los Angeles. And, the impact both those places, the teams, the organizations had on me. I learned so much, developed so many great relationships, have so many awesome memories. All my kids born while I was playing in Cincinnati. And I'm raising them here as a Los Angeles Ram and living here. So there will always be those connections. And to have that game be the final game, and then to win Walter Payton Man of the Year, and to be able to go into a SoFi Stadium and win the first ever Super Bowl for the Los Angeles Rams in SoFi, man, just something I'll forever be grateful for, and forever just honestly feel like I owe the game something back, because I feel like the game changed my life for the better. It's still to this day has an amazing impact on me and my family. And that's why I'm such a fan of it. And I love getting a chance to cover it each and every week with NFL on Prime and Amazon, because I feel like this game is the greatest game in the world. And there's so many lessons we can learn. Sometimes we make it so simple, like it's about stats and data points and all these things. But the reality is there's so many life lessons involved in the game of football that I think is one of the reasons it's such a joy to cover and to be around and have had an impact in my life.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree. I only played baseball growing up, and I always felt like football was the best game. It's the ultimate team sport. Sean McVay says that all the time. It really is. It's another science, it's like, you learn regular science. Well, now you have to learn football science, and there goes so much into it. That was a lot, but now I do want to get your thoughts on the Rams, because you are close to them. You're close to the organization. We've had our talks and everything. So let's just start off right away. Resting starters.
Yep.
How did you feel about that? Because for me personally, and I don't know, I have no idea personally if Stafford's hurt, right? But he just felt banged up the last 3 weeks that he played. I saw him take huge hits against the 49ers. I was at the Jets game. That game was cold, and if you're getting hit in that weather, that's going to hurt even worse. I just felt like giving him that week off made sense. Same with Cooper Kupp, who I don't think has looked the same as, say, the Bills game. And I just think that, with this now 17 weeks, I am totally okay if you've already clinched a playoff spot, and if you really believe to be as good as you believe you are, like the Rams do, then I'm not sitting there saying, well, I got to play all my starters to play a certain team. You have to have the mentality that you can beat anybody. So I'm curious where you are on that, because for me personally, I agreed with what they did.
Yeah, I would say that I think what's funny is that, in the NFL today, you have so many people who get on, there's one way to do things. And I think that's a bad ship to be on, because the reality is, if there's anything that's been proven about this league, is that it's ever changing all the time, and that you better be willing to grow and adapt if you want to be able to survive. And I think one of the ways you do that is really stick to the principles and maybe the culture that you've built and how you do things. And I think one of those things is for Sean McVay and this team is really the way that they, honestly go off their heart and their feel for what they think are the right decisions for their team, and protecting their culture and protecting really their guys that they think they're going to have the hugest impact on whether they win or lose. And they're not afraid to do that. You've heard Belichick and other coaches share, like, I didn't want to have to go to so-and-so and say, this person's more important than you, or like, they're going to play in this game and you're not, or, blah, 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 blah. And I think that, hey, you know what, if that's their conviction and that's how they have conversations, then great. But I also think there's something to say about a guy who does have the guts to go to somebody and go, hey, you realize this guy makes $25 million and you make $1 million. So you do understand in life, everywhere you go in life, there's going to be totem poles, and certain guys are going to live in certain seats, and certain guys have earned the right and the respect to be treated a certain way. And over time, we've built this trust in who they are and how they're going to do things. To me, I think it's a bad sign if you tell me that you don't know how to have conversations with people like that. And so I'm not saying that McVay's right or Belichick's wrong. I'm saying that everyone needs to do it the way they do it. And I think Bill Belichick, just like Dan Campbell, runs a much different team and organization than really Sean does. And not that one's right or wrong. I think it's unique to who they are, and that's what makes them great. Stay who you are at all times. And so I think for Sean, when you look at this team, though, I don't even think that really plays as big a part, as much as I've got a really young defense. I've got a veteran-led offense with Stafford and Kupp, Rob Havenstein, some of these guys that you're really going to have to lean on in the playoffs, that I need those guys to be as fresh and frisky as I can possibly have them, because the way we're going to win is we're going to have to possess the football. We're going to have to be able to score when we get down in the red zone. So I'm going to need Stafford to be at his best. I'm going to need Puka to be at his best. I'm going to need Rob Havenstein every time he's in the lineup. Watch the difference in how we run the football, because he kind of orchestrates the line. That's what he does, man, making sure they're all right, making sure the attitude, the vibe is right in this group up front. Him being healthy is a huge factor, right? I'm going to need Kyron Williams to be fresh, because we're going to have to – you're not an explosive guy. We've shown that. You're very successful, but you don't have a lot of explosive runs. You know what I'm going to need? All the explosiveness you got. All the ability you got to go get first downs and touchdowns. I'm going to need Stafford to be fresh, the receivers to be fresh, and I'm going to need a young defense that wants to go hunt and win and chase the football. Because the truth is, matchup for matchup, we're not going to be as talented as some of the teams you're going to play. That's just the facts right now. Not saying they won't be down the road, but right now you're not going to be. So you know what I need? The freshest, friskiest, want to go get after it, be it our best football team I can possibly get. And that's what the Rams did. They rested guys so they can have that. Will it work? Who knows? Because guess what? They got one of the toughest roads possible to get to the Super Bowl, between the Minnesota Vikings, possibly the Detroit Lions, or Philly. I mean, you got tough games to go win against teams that are honestly a little better talent-wise than you are right now, and that's just the truth. But you know what I'd rather do? Be rested and ready to go if I'm going to take down that road, because I got the longest road to get there, one of the toughest to get there. So I agree with the decision. I think it's the right one for this football team and what they needed to do. And no matter how it plays out, I think it's the right decision. We can't judge that. NFL games are decided by such minuscule things that to say whether you rested or not is really the idea. Like, come on, man. These games come down to a ball bouncing 1 foot the other direction, or a tipped pass, or I mean, there's things that come down to these games. Like, come on, look at the game last year in Detroit. If people got on me about that. I'm not saying the Rams should have won. What I'm saying is like the reality is that game really came down to a call that could go either way. And whichever way it went dictated who won. And that's just a fact. And so it's like, all right, I'm not going to, a week ago when Stafford was sitting on the sideline not playing in the game, that's what dictated whether they won or not. No, like that's ridiculous. So I think we make too much of these conversations. I think this conversation is simple. You don't need the most rested, ready to ride team you need for the playoffs, and this game doesn't mean anything. So rest your guys and let's go roll. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to suit it up, and they're going to be ready to ride. And the Minnesota Vikings better come here realizing that they're scared of nobody. They're ready to ride. They're going to try to make it to the Super Bowl, and that's their goal.
I agree completely. I would argue that if anything, if we're talking about anything affecting the playoffs, I think it's about how those guys came out yesterday. I thought they had momentum still from that game. They should have won the game. They outplayed Seattle the entire second half. And
Seattle almost got beat by their backups. I mean,
here Thomas was not offsides either. I'm just saying. He was way off the line of scrimmage and then jumped. And I'm sure you've seen that. It seems like officials will throw that offsides call when a guy jumps, but he's lined up purposely not on the line of scrimmage for that reason. And they treat it almost like it's a false start type of deal for the defense. I've noticed that. But yeah, I just think that was really good vibes. Now, I will challenge you on this one because you might disagree with me on this. I think it was the Super Bowl season. You guys played the Texans, I believe, that year, I want to say. And there was a game where you guys were just dominating, right? Dominating. And I'm sitting there like, I don't want the starters to come out. I think they need to finish this game strong. And then all of a sudden, you guys all come out. And the Texans, who were just completely dominated, they throw in Davis Mills. And I thought that hurt you guys moving forward. I thought that kind of took away the momentum that you guys had really built and captured in that game. Because we saw the Tennessee game, I think was the following game. And then it was like kind of the November to remember the November not to remember, the November to forget, no win November. And obviously it didn't lead to you guys not winning the Super Bowl or anything. But is that a fair, like I feel like that was more damaging than, say, sitting out your starters week 18.
Well, I think when you're up in games and you pull guys out, I mean, I think that's just kind of a natural thing of the league. Now, I would argue that, you look at it, to me, I've always looked at those decisions late in the year, and I think really the last week of the season is the only time it really matters, is how hot are you? How are things going? Now, if you told me that the Rams were scoring at an unreal clip and they're rolling on offense, and look fresh as can be, and like, hey, let's stay hot because we are hot, then that's a totally different decision. Yeah, of course. I think that you keep playing, you keep rolling. Now, at the same time, what has this Rams offense been built off of? Are they an offense that we know as, man, all the explosives that this team has, it's crazy? No, like they're a team that they've won games by possessing the ball, 1,000 cuts, and eventually we're going to have some plays that are going to break through, and we're going to score points, and we're going to possess it, and we're going to play good enough defense that we got good young rushers that if we can get you to third and, long or medium or long, and we can get after you, we can get off the grass, offense will stay on the field for a while, we'll take a long drive, and we'll just keep beating you and bludgeoning you to death and win a game. And that's who they are. Well, guess what? That style of football, okay, the only way it's going to win is if you are feeling healthy enough to go bludgeon people to death. And so in this scenario, they made the decision they made because that's the style of football they got to play to win. And so they need to be fresh. Like, take a week off. You're like a prize fighter. Hey, man, take a week off, heal up. Next week, it's body blow season again. And we got to be in shape to go give body blows and receive them. And that's who they got to be to win. I mean, that's their only window. That's just the truth. They're not all of a sudden going to walk out there and be this crazy explosive team with speed all over the place. That's not who they are. So stay true to who you are. We got to be ready for body blow season, and our route to winning is going to be body blow after body blow after body blow and find a way to win and turn the football over on defense. And that's it. And so I think they know who they are, and that's what they're going after. And so that's why I supported the decision. But I have seen teams, you look in 17, right? Like, we were on fire. We were blowing people out left and right that year. And then we sat against San Francisco, and the last week of the season, Todd Gurley had a chance to win the rushing title. We decided not to do it. And then we go out there and we play the Atlanta Falcons, and we play the worst game we played the entire season. It wasn't even close. Now, granted, there were some things in that game, muffin punts, stuff like that led to that part of that. But the reality is, all year long, we had shown the ability to overcome that because we were so good on offense. And we weren't that in the playoffs because we probably, in that scenario, you could argue, all right, that's a scenario where maybe we should have played it through, not been so worried about guys being healthy. But that was also Sean McVay's very first season as a 30-year-old head coach. He's trying to figure out what's best for his team. You've qualified for the playoffs. You've won the division. Like, people are telling you both things. So, maybe you can look back and second guess yourself. But the reality is, in this situation, this was the right decision for this football team, no question.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Interesting, though, I do think that I think this was the right decision on multiple fronts, because I think, one, You get Jimmy Garoppolo going as your backup, and now he's ready to roll if, God forbid, Stafford goes down. And I know this sounds crazy, and I didn't even think I'd say it, but I think he could operate this offense with the starters and everything, and I think they could maybe steal a win. I'm not saying that he'd go on the Nick Foles run and anything, but if, God forbid, and I love Stafford, I've loved him since Detroit, but if he were to go down, I think Jimmy Garoppolo could manage this team. I do. I was really impressed with the way he played, yesterday. And I just don't think he's getting enough credit for it. And I don't think Mike LaFleur's getting enough credit for the play calling he had in that game. Sean McVay's not getting enough credit for calling that timeout and saying, go for it, because I think that was huge in that one. But there were a lot of things. And, in particular, I've been really kind of loud about, I know, shocker, Whit, I've been loud. I've been loud about Jordan Whittington.
Yeah.
Could you see him getting maybe more playing time than maybe people are expecting, in the playoffs? Because I got to tell you, I think he should be out there a lot more than he currently is. And it just feels like every time he gets his hand on the football, he's going to do something with it. This is a former running back that was moved to wide receiver, and you see it. Every time he gets the ball, he looks like a running back in space. But I don't know. What say you? One Wit to the other Jay.
I think I called him Little Wit, Big Wit and Little Wit during the preseason games. But yeah, I mean, I love watching him play. I think that's another added benefit that you don't think about sometimes when you're just trying to make a decision on whether you agree with the coach's decision to rest guys or not, is that you also got a chance to put a lot of people in the game, develop a game plan around. Like, think about this. Outside of the preseason, when nobody's really playing each other and they're not really devising real game plans for games, when do you get a chance when you're a team like the Rams, who's built off a lot of veteran guys and really a system of how they do things every week? You're not just throwing random guys in the lineup, because that's just not how you're built. And they really don't have that room for error, honestly. They don't have time for a young guy to go out there and run the wrong route. Because they are limited in some of their explosives. They are limited in some of those possessions where it's like, hey, we're going to drive the football 12, 13 plays. We can't waste a play, or we never even get our drive started. So when do you get the opportunity to say, hey, all right, we've already won our division. This game means nothing. Why not, regardless of Jimmy Garoppolo, why not put some of these guys in the game, put them in a scheme, devise a game plan. Let's see how well they are at, hey, this is the formation for this play. This is the motion. This is the route you got. This is how you adjust to this coverage. This is how we're going to handle pass protection. These are your hot adjustments. These are the things we're going to do in a game. To put them in a game plan, let them devise a game plan for the week. And now guess what you just did? If you got to go watch them perform well, now when I get in the playoffs and I go, you know what? This would actually be a much better play for Jordan Whittington right now than Cooper Kupp or for Puka to do. Or maybe this is a great play to put Puka over here and teams worried about him and we can give Jordan Whittington the ball. You got to watch guys handle a game plan and go, all right, he can handle it in the moment, understanding where to be, how to do it, and also he can produce once we give him the football. And so I think you get little opportunities like that, whether it be a tight end, an extra receiver, an extra running back, anybody, a defensive guy that we put in a situation to, hey, do some one-on-one coverages, play some man-to-man. Let's see if we can trust you in some of these situations. You get a chance to enter some pieces, and now you just added to your repertoire of, hey, you know what? The NFL is a lot like basketball at times. It's matchup football. So, how can we create some other matchups that maybe teams haven't seen all year? Because I've always said this about Andy Reid. The last 2 years, you go look at their seasons. You can look at the data. They play 11 personnel, and not necessarily this year, but the last 2 years, they played a lot of 11 personnel. They have a certain kind of run game, how they do things with Patrick. And then all of a sudden, you get in the playoffs. It's going to be 12 and 13 personnel. The run game is going to change a little bit. They're going to run a lot more pull lead scheme type plays. They're going to adjust how they kind of run. There's some power counter, all this stuff they get them in. And you're like, wait, has he been teasing us all season long? They're good enough that they can play one style now. And then when we get in the playoffs and you think you're getting X, Y, and Z the whole game, and wait a minute, no, this is what we're getting the whole game. And we haven't really even talked about how to game plan for it. And so my point is that when you are able to kind of mix and match personnels, people, in the games, at this point, teams have 17 games of everything you do. They know what's coming. But if you all of a sudden have wait a minute, what's that guy's number and who's he? Wait a minute, what were we doing when this guy's in the game? I don't remember because I've never seen him play in the game. When you can all of a sudden be able to mix those things on teams, that's when you really start to be able to have an advantage when you get in the playoffs, because we have to remember The playoffs is not about a season. It's not about a division record. It's not about, we got to play San Francisco twice or Seattle twice, Arizona twice, or we got to go on the road 3 games in a row. No. It's a 3-hour window. Whoever is the best in that 3-hour window. So I'm sorry that you weren't prepared for this guy to get the ball, or you haven't seen this formation or whatever. Too bad. That half's over with and you're down, and now you got to make a play or we win the game. That's what playoff football is. And that's why when you have a Sean McVay, when you have some of these Kyle Shanahans, Kevin O'Connell, some of these guys, that the ability they have to game plan, I think Liam Cohen's shown that this year, to adjust and say, hey, you know what? Hey, this is how you want to play us. I got a couple wrinkles over here that we can find and we're going to expose you. When you have those guys in these kind of climate in the playoffs, when it's only a 3-hour window, and there's not any adjustments being made next week for next week's game, it's whether you can win this game, you have an advantage.
No, I agree. And I love the way you worded that, because, I mean, it is a reminder that, yeah, okay, they did this all year. And, you know, the Rams, by the way, would be the second team this year ever to have a negative point differential win the Super Bowl. The last team, and the only team, has been the Giants in 2011. But it is a reminder that all that goes out the window. It's clean slate, you know. Yep. The only thing is the seeding, and really the seeding doesn't matter all that much, because, you know, the Rams are hosting a playoff game over a 14-win team. Just that's based on how it went down. And to your point earlier, I mean, they would have it would have to be the toughest road in the history of the playoffs. I mean, a 14-win team, another 14-win team potentially, in the Eagles, you know, if they got that far. And then the Lions 15. I mean, that'd be insane.
It's crazy.
Wild. No one could say they hadn't earned it if they get there.
No, there's no doubt about that.
They beat those teams. But yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, I think even kind of looking yesterday, I was really like a big fan when they went out and they got Emmanuel Forbes, because I feel like he's, you know, first round talent, oozing with potential. And just sometimes, you know, things don't work out. You get a new regime and everything that comes in, new coaching staff, you don't fit in. And, you know, of course, Dan Quinn being a guy that's been to a Super Bowl, really well respected. Cowboys missed him this year. You know, he brings over some of his own guys. Igbenogany is getting some playing time. And so now he falls out of favor. And then you see him go to the Rams, and he hasn't really gotten an opportunity, obviously, because he doesn't really know, you know, the playbook. He doesn't know, like, the scheme and everything. And you got to see him just man to man going up against DK Metcalf. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if we see him in the playoffs. That's a lot to put on him. But I could see him as like a third down weapon, where he could be somebody you just throw on maybe Justin Jefferson this week and just ask him with those fluid hips and just like the way he's able to play, just, hey, can you cover him on this third down? Now, the great thing, I think, looking at this game for the Rams is that, whether people realize it or not, because I know they're known as the zone defense team, the team that plays the soft shell. But when you look at these guys, they can all play man. And we saw that against Brock Purdy and the 49ers. And that's how you beat Brock Purdy. You know, because when you're playing soft zone, Brock Purdy's going to pick you apart. But when you play man, it really makes it tough for him. And I think we saw last night, I have a lot of respect for Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, and I really like what Sam Darnold's done. But, I mean, come on. We saw the Lions last night really put the blueprint out there on how to stop this offense. And the Rams already beat this team. I think, you know, kind of looking at Ahkello Witherspoon, Emmanuel Forbes, you know, Kobe Durant had a great game, week 18. He's had a great season. Darius Williams. I think they should play man the majority of the game and just let those guys get after Darnold. I mean, they have, I believe they're number 1 in pressure rate this year. The guys have been great. But what say you? How would you attack this Vikings team, and what are your kind of thoughts going into this game for the Rams?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at Sam Darnold and really how the season's gone for them. There's, you know, that kind of the take of, you know, he's been good against teams that have tried to blitz him, but they haven't blitzed him very much all year. And then all of a sudden you get in this game and Detroit says, well, let's find out, you know, if that really holds, because it's actually, most teams don't blitz him that much. So there's really not a lot of repertoire of like, all right, like, what do we, like, what team can we say played them and said, all right, man, they blitzed the crap out of him and he was able to just dominate them? Or is it just mixed and matched in there? He's had some success against blitzes. And so I think Detroit really said, look, we're going to try to eliminate these receivers and we're going to go after him and let's see how fast he can process and make decisions and not let him sit back there with the ball, because that's one of the things he's had a tendency to do. Is it seems like he kind of wants to take a little time to make his decision, and he's got some great receivers that know how to get open. And so I think that really what Detroit did best is obviously they eliminate these guys, but they really sped up his clock and they made him have to make decisions faster. And I think, to me, that's really got to be what you go after. You look at really when the Rams played them and beat them. One of the big changes that you saw on this Rams team is they started blitzing more right after the bye week. They kind of said, hey, listen, as a defense, we're not going to always just sit back there. We're going to mix it up sometimes, and we're going to blitz more, increase our percentage of going after people. And they had success. And so I think really for this Rams team, that's the one cool thing I like is, you're not sitting in a position where you said, all right, this is one of the best rosters we've had. We have a lot of expectation this year. You're sitting more in a place where we have a really good football team. But we obviously have some youth and some inexperience that you'd probably say is a couple years away from being as good as our defense is going to possibly be. But let's go for broke, man. Let's send it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Let's be aggressive in this game and let's get after people. And I think it'll be interesting to see if that's not the approach the Rams have. Like, I could see them almost dialing it up in a Dan Campbell type way of saying, hey, you know what? Like, what's the worst that happens? We lose. Like, nobody expected us to be here anyways. Nobody had us at 1-4, thought we were making the playoffs. So let's go get after people. We're going to play sound football, but we're going to get after it. We're going to increase our aggressiveness and say, you know what, let's figure out if this is the best way for us to win games in these playoffs is to take chances. And so I'm interested to see what their MO is going to be and really the mentality of how they think they're going to win. But like I said, it's a tough road. In Minnesota, will be a tough win. If you have to go to Detroit, that's a tough one. Philly obviously, dominated this Rams team. But the truth is, we don't know how all these teams are going to play in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts has been out a while. Like, who's to say that Philly's going to be at their best? Jordan Love and this Packers team. Dude, I think they're as talented a roster as anybody. It's just whether Jordan Love plays to the capabilities of Jordan Love, of really, like, they could beat anybody. So they're really in the mix, right? The Detroit Lions are beat up on defense. That's just a fact. Minnesota probably plays into, like, how they're built right now, the best scenario for them. But are they built to stop some of these other teams that are just as good as them up front in Philly and, and so in Green Bay and some of these other groups like right now with their health on defense? I don't know. So that's what I mean is that, yeah, there's some good teams in here, but I think it's a lot more open than people think because of the Detroit injuries. If Detroit was healthy, I would tell you that, man, I don't see a team stopping them on their way to the Super Bowl, but they're not as healthy as people want them to be. And that's a reality. And then you get in the playoffs, man, and these moments get down to one little fine thing, one little percentage or yard. Will you be right? And that's going to be the question. And so I think the Rams, you know what? They got a chance to make some noise. I just think that they're going to have a clear plan and how they think to get there. And I think, to me, it's going to be how aggressive can they get, play that way and say, you know what? Worst case, we lose, but we're not going to go out without swinging.
Hey, I like it. I will say, people are going to call me a homer. I think we're going to see a rematch of that the Bills game. I think that's going to be the Super Bowl. I think we're going to see Rams-Bills. And the reason I believe this, I actually think the Chargers are going to upset Kansas City. They play a brand of football that I think is perfect because people are going to look at it and be like, these LA teams, like sunny California, they can't play postseason football. They can't ground and pound. You haven't been paying attention. I mean, Jim Harbaugh, that's what he wants to do. And when you look at, the Rams, I mean, I've been really impressed with their ability to win games. In the past, they don't win those games, right? I don't think they do. I mean, we saw even the best teams they lost those games in the past, and they're winning that 49er game. And they never won those games. They never won. That Jets game, I mean, that was cold. And it did not look good at all. Like the Jets looked like
those are set-up games. Anytime you're going West Coast to East Coast, cold weather, you're supposed to lose those games. That's just a reality. Like, that is the nature of the game. Those are the games that, your fan base gets livid with you and you go out there and lose and you play bad. And
I'll never say a word.
Look at the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the Miami Dolphins are having they can't figure out how to win a game in cold weather. Like, they got no chance. I mean, it's literally ridiculous how much they struggle playing in big games against good teams in cold weather. So it is a setup. And I think to your point, yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know if I see Bills, Rams. I think that's a chance. I think the tough thing for the Bills is going to be, can they get past the Ravens? Because I think when you start to talk about matchups, much like I think Philly is a really tough matchup for the Rams, and how they're built and how we're built, I think it's a total different thing. That's going to be a really challenging game for me to see the Rams win. But Bills against the Ravens, I think the same thing. That's a really tough matchup for the Bills, because I think all the things the Ravens are good at and really put situations for Buffalo. They put Josh in a situation to have to make a lot of He-Man plays. And, unfortunately for them defensively, I don't know that they can stop Derrick Henry, because they've shown a little bit of, a weakness stopping the run game. And so that combination of Lamar and Derrick, I think it's a tough win for Buffalo over Baltimore. But hey, you know what? Every now and then it's a guy's time. And maybe this year, Josh Allen is probably definitely been one of those guys that's an elite player that you've seen had a lot of growth in his game. Not just being the same guy, but like this growth, this next step of his being able to take care of the football has really taken him and this team to a whole nother level, in my opinion. So maybe that'll be on display and they can figure it out, because I think they would be a fun one to see get that opportunity. That's for sure. And I'd love to see the Rams make a run. Philly's the one that's tough and also scoring points.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, the teams that score a lot of points here recently have really had success in the postseason. And the Rams, unfortunately, on the road have really struggled to put up points. And that's what they're going to have to do. We're going to have to find some of that explosive plays and putting up points on the road.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does bode well. They've won these grinded out games. I think with the Philly game, and I said this leaving SoFi, I don't know why I said this. I don't know why I thought this, but, even though, and I think really the biggest issue is when you have those mobile quarterbacks, they've really given the young defense some fits. But when you have that Eagles team, that was a game that I felt like fully healthy, the Rams could have won. Now there were fumbles in that game. It kind of snowballed being there and everything. You could really feel it. The momentum just went completely one-sided when Saquon broke that run. But I just feel like that Jets game kind of taught them how to win in that environment. That was the coldest game of Sean McVay's career. Yeah. I believe that was the coldest game of Stafford's career. And like you're saying, like with Jalen Hurts, and I don't even know if they're going to make it. But it's really interesting to me, because if they do play each other, to me, that is the worst matchup for the Rams. That's the only place that you were going. I mean, Tampa, right? But really, that's the only place that you're going to go where the elements are really going to play a factor. Tampa's outside, but, Florida is not going to be as cold as Philly in January, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you could make an argument, I think you could make an argument with how this Rams team is built, that they actually have a better chance in Philly than they do in SoFi.
Wow.
I actually believe that. Because, in my opinion, when you play a team like Philly, who is as good as they are on the perimeter with the receivers, and you're on turf, and Saquon Barkley and an offensive line. Like I know for myself, when you're an offensive lineman on turf, your footing's so freaking good. And when you're that dominant up front on both sides of the football, receiving the football, the skill sets they have, Saquon Barkley, this offensive line, Jalen Hurts. We think of even Kyler Murray in the past when he's come to SoFi, that really some of the performances he's been able to have, just because you have such good footing and you're so hard to get on the ground. That it is challenging to win there sometimes for them, just how they're built specifically. But to go on the road, play in the grass and a little bit of bad environment weather, I mean, this is what the Rams are. They possess the football. They're going to run it. They're going to try and win the time of possession. Can you force a couple turnovers, some fumbles because the ball's slick? It's bad environment. I just think that the Rams are built to kind of win in some of those type games. Now, have they struggled to put up points on the road? Yes. But I just think when you're talking about playoff football, all you need is a couple breaks to go your way, and you're built to possess it and keep getting first downs, and you find yourself some plays. Plus, I also think when you talk about pre-snap motions, you talk about all the things that Sean McVay does, I always found that when we were at our best there, sometimes it was some of our best is to be on the road, because now the defense can't communicate. And now they've got to adjust all these things when you're moving around and doing these things without being able to hear. So they got to be on the same page. They got to see it the same way. You can mess with their eyes and their vision and steal them looking one way or the other because they can't communicate. It's not silent in their place anymore, those type things. So sometimes, it actually plays into your favor a little bit, depending on who you are as an offense and your style of football. And so I think there's a world where, I don't hate the Rams being on the road in Philly and in an environment on the grass. Like I do. I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I think if you put them in the two places, I think that there's a little bit of an advantage to bad weather, cold weather, grass football, that the Rams are better in that. I think they're just a tick better.
Sounds like you're saying that the Rams fans should be rooting for the Commanders to beat the Bucs and go to Philly instead of going to Detroit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I think Detroit's a tough place to get. Same thing, right? When you start talking about great offensive lines and skill players and all that on turf, it's a lot tougher in my opinion. I just think it is. I mean, now granted, yes, the defense has that same footing, but I just think that there's a little bit of if you're not built the exact same way they are. I think there's a little bit of an advantage there. And so, I mean, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and how fast that dude is. Listen, here's the bottom line. I'll take any way to slow him down just a hair. All right. So if it's grass, if it's ice, dirt, I don't care. Just slow him down a fraction for me, please. I don't care if that means I'm slower too. I just somehow, some way, let's make a play. So, outside of being able to get the Pittsburgh Steelers grass and sand, in SoFi Stadium, I don't know any other way for us to slow them down. So I'm okay with us being outside on the road in the grass.
Wow, you might have just changed my opinion on that, because it does make sense. I mean, you play these games, you grind it out. It just, other seasons you would have wanted to play, in a dome and what have you. But to your point, and plus, you have Kyron Williams, who I think it's so funny. No one said anything about it because it was all, he's too small. He can't be a lead back. He's injury prone. I don't know. I've heard crickets this year about his injuries. I've heard crickets about his ability to carry a full workload. I mean, we're talking about the guy with the most touches a Ram player has had since Steven Jackson in 2010. Wow. No one talks about that. But
yeah, it's wild. Yeah. He's had a great year, and he's continued to answer the bell in that regard. But it is too much. Like, I would say that they've got to find those other pieces and those other wrinkles of this team, and this offseason, that'll be a big part for them. But you know what? I mean, listen, there's a lot to be happy about, and that's why I say that being aggressive in these playoffs is something the Rams have earned. Is that you've shown that you've drafted really well in this last class. You've got a lot of young defensive guys you're going to be able to build a team around. You look at it, you got some pieces on offense up front that are playing well. You've got some young receivers that have been able to come in and show some stuff. I just think that, when you look at the backs, you look at some of those things, you've got to feel good about, hey, we make some good moves this offseason, some of the key pieces, like we are going to continue to be competitive. We're going to continue to compete for world titles. And that's what it's all about. And that was, after we won the Super Bowl in 21 and 22 went the way it went, which was crazy for people to jump off the bandwagon on that, because it's like, dude, you had NFL record history, like historic injuries happening in your organization, your offensive line. It was crazy.
17 different offensive line combinations.
To flip it back this fast and losing one of the greatest players that's ever played the game of football in Aaron Donald, and to be competitive again, man, hats off to their organization and to everyone involved in that. And I'm excited. I'm excited about their opportunity in the playoffs. I'm excited about their future. I think they would have shown that this relationship and group between Kevin Demoff and Les Snead and Sean McVay and all them, that there's a vision they all have together, and when they go after it, they seem to make right decisions. Now there's some that you take back, and there's some you'd say, oh man, I wish you'd maybe knock this one or that one. But listen, you keep showing yourself that you can finish seasons the way they are. That's what it's all about, because I don't care where you're ranked, what your seeding is. It's the teams that play their absolute best football in December and January that make the most noise. And they've been able to show that they can figure out a way to do that when they've actually had a healthy roster. And so I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, I am too, Whit. And I will say I do think they've had some unlucky bouts. I mean, the whole thing with Todd Gurley, he's on his way to
Crazy, man.
being,
One of the best players in the world, you know.
I hate it
honestly,
for
one
him
of the best
so
players I've
much.
ever played with. And you know, I think that one hurt everybody to see how it ended for him because he was such a special human being, first and foremost, and player also. I can't imagine how good we could have been had he been able to stay healthy, you know, on this whole entire ride. It would have been a lot of fun, that's for sure, because he's a rare dude, from a player, person, all of it. Rare human being, man. So it was tough on all of us to see how that ended for him. But, you know, look, they've continued to adjust and adapt and grow and find a way. And that's what the NFL is all about, because the most frustrating thing as a fan base of any team in the league is to watch your team continue to fail the same ways, continue to come up short the same ways, and you never do anything about it, you know, and you never make that adjustment. You never say, all right, you know what, like, it hurts to do this, but we've got to adjust. We've got to find a new identity. We've got to go a different route. You know, if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan right now, like, the reality is you can't blame the Chiefs for blocking you. You've got to blame yourself that 3 years in a row you have started the season horrifically and had horrific starts to the season. You put yourself so far behind that you have to make these insane comebacks. And that's just not a place you want to live in. But 3 years in a row, you've started that way. And so you've got to fix it. And I think hats off to Zach Taylor. You see him like, hey, we're not going to accept it. Like, Lou Anaru is a great dude. He's done some good things for us, but we've got to go a different direction. We've got to find a way to fix it. We've got to find a different route, because this route's not working. And, you know, they did the same thing with the offensive line coach and a couple other guys. Yeah, I think as a player, you hate to see that happen because you form these relationships. But at the same time, 3 months, I always go with the 3 months from now thing, is it's like 3 months from now, you can be like, you know what? We're not just doing the status quo. We're not just saying, all right, man, it'll work out. Let's just figure it out. We're saying, hey, something had to change. Let's change it. Maybe it's right. Maybe it's wrong, but we're not going to sit here and accept it. And so I think that you end up saying, you know what? I love that. It's the same feeling I have for these contract negotiations and trading. Like, man, instead of these long 5-6 month things where you tear the culture of your football team negotiating with guys, if you really feel like it's worth trading them, do it. Because you know what you do? You rip the Band-Aid off, you get your value back, and you say, hey, let's move on, and everybody stops thinking about it. How you destroy yourself is when everyone's doing nothing but thinking about those things that need to get fixed for 4 or 5 months, because it doesn't just affect the guy negotiating the contract, it affects his entire team. Because they all don't know whose side to be on. They all don't know what to do about it. And you're just putting them all in stress and turmoil for, like, how's the future going to look for us? Instead of just, hey, here's a clear-cut decision. This is what we're going to do. We're paying the guy or we're trading him. Boom, move on, let's go. The NFL has proven, man, that you can win a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different routes. Make a damn decision and let's go. Let's move. And so I think that's the best thing you can do, is make decisions and move on and keep building your roster and your culture, and make sure that you protect your building at all costs, and your leadership. You know, you protect your leaders at all costs. That's the best thing you can do. So I think, you know, you look at these teams that do that, that's what you get excited about. And that's why I love the Rams, because they continue to do that, man. When it's time to move on, they move. And when they feel like there's some move that can change the game for them and put them in a position to compete, they continue to make those decisions, and that's what you want to see.
I agree. And the last 2 drafts, they've done an excellent job. I want to give you props for the whole thing with Ernest Jones, our disagreement about what they got, what they didn't get. I didn't like it at first, and I'm going to be blunt here. I haven't really thought about Ernest Jones since. And it's nothing against him. I really like what I've seen out of Christian Roseboom when he's been playing with Omar Spades. I feel like there's just something, he just plays a different style of football with Spades. You just saw the confidence just go through the roof. And honestly, I would not be against those two being the linebackers next year. And I know some people don't want to hear that. They want to go out and get Dre Greenlaw or some big name or whatever. But I actually like the development. And I think just, you know, what a lot of people will say, because the whole you bought a championship stuff from the rival teams, it is what it is. It's sour grapes. And obviously 49er fans not seeing a Super Bowl for 30 years, that happens. But, you know, with that said, I think it's really underestimated just how quickly and how insane this rebuild has been on the fly. I mean, the last 2 drafts have been some of the best drafts I've ever seen. I mean, just absolutely value all over the place. I don't want to, you know, take up your time the rest of the day. Like, I appreciate you so much for coming on. I want to wrap it up by asking you this and kind of throwing this your way. Tyler Higbee, Is it crazy that I believe he is the X factor to this offense? I saw Tyler Higbee yesterday. I saw him in the Jets game, saw him in Airs. I just feel like he didn't lose a step. And I feel like the confidence was oozing in that Seahawks game. I think he's going to be huge down the stretch. But what do you think about that before I let you go?
Well, I mean, listen, Tyler Higbee has been an integral part of everything the Rams have been since I got there in 2017. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is the ultimate, do whatever it takes for everyone else to succeed guy, and then does it with an infectious energy that is second to nobody. Like, there's not a single guy in that locker room that's played there since I got there in 2017 that wouldn't tell you Tyler Higbee's one of their favorite people in that entire building. You know, you look at the elation when he scores his touchdown against the Jets, that whole entire bench they're trying to hold them all back because they all want to celebrate with him at the same time. The emotion in their eyes and his, I'll never forget, our Super Bowl run when he tears his MCL and has surgery and still trying to figure out a way if he could play in the game, and him being in tears and emotional, trying to just walk on the treadmill and take one step after the other. I remember sitting there on that bench in the training room watching him and thinking to myself, here I am at 40. I'm tired. I'm beat up and I'm feeling sorry for myself. But I'm ready for this next chapter. And then, man, thinking to myself, lock into the current moment. This dude would give up everything in his life to just have a chance to play in this Super Bowl. Like, don't you for one freaking second let it go, take it for granted. And it just helped me push our team and our locker room to see how much it meant to him, to be out there with us. And it's why, I have the famous picture of me, holding my jersey up that I wrote his name and Robert Woods' name on my undershirt.
Awesome.
I was just sitting around looking at him. I was like, no, this dude's got to be with me today. And, that guy right there is one of those guys that I was just talking about, that when you walk in a room, we all know this person. You're a smile, an emotion, a feeling you have of just the day's going to be okay. Like, everything in life's going to be okay. Or my day is going to be a little bit better because I just ran into this person or I just saw him. Like, that's who Tyler Higbee is. He is someone that your day is just a little better because you got a chance to see his face, his smile, hug him, be around him. He is, without question, one of the emotional leaders of this football team. Obviously, with his play, he's a leader, but he's also one of the emotional leaders in the sense that guys feed off of who he is and how he lives his life when he's in that huddle, and it matters to that football team. So I'm excited to see him back, the energy, the emotion. I saw the same thing this weekend with him. It's fun to see him in there because that dude drives the bus, man. You need people who are the energy bus examples, and they sit in that front seat, turn the truck on, and they say, let's go. And then everyone else just hops in the bus and rides. And that's who he is, man. He's the energy bus for sure for them, and puts a lot of smiles on their faces. And I would imagine they all feel just a tick more confident when he's sitting in that huddle. Big Rig Hig, baby.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I had a chance to meet him after that 51-17 drubbing, that you guys had against the Giants. And I saw the same thing. Just immediately, like, the guy just seemed really stoked, just a happy guy. And I always thought it said a lot, not only just about Sean McVay, but also about Tyler Higbee. You see a lot of new coaches, they come in, they want their own guys. Higbee was not drafted by Sean McVay. He was drafted by Jeff Fisher in 2016. So obviously Les Snead was there, but I still never forget that, because keep in mind, the first ever draft pick of the McVay era was the other tight end. It was what a lot of people would have said his replacement. And Higbee's still here, and it's nothing against Gerald Everett. I appreciate Everett and everything, but I mean, the job Higbee's done, and he's gotten so much better as a blocker over the course of his career. He's so easy to root for. Hated that hit. I don't know how you feel about it. Not going to put you on the spot there. I thought it was a dirty hit. But I'm so glad he's back, and I'm so glad he gets a chance, and I think it's going to make the Rams a lot better, and I think especially in the red zone, they're going to have that, kind of bootleg that we saw yesterday against Seattle. That's going to be there because everyone's going to be focused on Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams. Demarcus Robinson's caught 7 touchdowns this year. There's a lot of different guys they can go to, and I think Higbee is going to be huge for them and kind of spreading everyone out. But Whit, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know it's very valuable. I mean, you're on all sorts of commercials. You are killing it. Podcast Game on, the Amazon Prime NFL Thursday Night Football. Obviously, we know that's over, for now, but just done such a great job. I think you represent just the Rams so well. Always appreciate, just our conversations via Twitter, DMs, what have you. And to get you on here, I know it's been a while. You mentioned about this, earlier in the year. I'm so glad we got this going. I think this is the perfect time to do it, man, right before the postseason.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on with you. I mean, listen, the people that cover and provide information to Rams fans and build up, really the following that it means, to be a part of this Rams house is always awesome. So I love the conversations, and I hope people understand that it's dialogue, and that's what it's supposed to be, and you're going to go, I don't need people to agree with me. And I don't mind you disagreeing. And I've always said is like, not just you, just anyone, like, listen, we can agree, disagree, all those things. Like, let's just always keep it respectful with each other and keep it in the context of the conversation. And I think that's what life's supposed to be like. Right. And so all these eliminating each other over viewpoints and everything else is crazy, because I don't know how you ever educate each other on, anything if you just eliminate people every time they disagree with one another. So, it's like learning and finding ways to get along, man. That to me is life, and to keep, chugging on. None of us have it all figured out. All of us make mistakes. All of us are going to have takes that are going to be wrong. We're going to takes that are going to be right. But I would hope that we're all in this thing, man. But at the end of the day, for everyone to get the best out of life, man, because that's what it's all about. We got a limited time to be here. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. I can't wait this weekend. First ever Amazon Prime playoff game. I got the Ravens hosting the Steelers. Oh, you are
doing it.
Yeah, our first ever one, man. First ever playoff
congratulations.
Game.
That's awesome. I didn't
part
know
of history. That. First ever Amazon stream playoff game. So that's going to be really awesome. I was hoping we were going to get the Rams, but unfortunately with us losing, I think that kind of took away the opportunity for us to be that 3 seed and maybe get this game. But we got a great one. Ravens Steelers. It's going to be an insane game. I'm looking forward to it. Hoping I get some snow and some cold weather. I love anytime I get to go back to the AFC North, get a little taste of it. So I'm excited for that game. Thank you for having me on, man. It was a blast. All the best. And whose house? Rams house, baby. Let's keep it rolling.
Absolutely. You're welcome to come on anytime. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy it. You guys do a great job. So I will definitely be tuning in. I wish the Rams were playing on a Monday night. It is what it is. But guys, check out I got to make sure I get this down correctly. The Wit and Fitz podcast.
No, that's Fitz and Wit, but you can call it Wit and Fitz. I like that. See, I'm trying to get it switched, right?
Yeah.
But no, I'm kidding.
I'm not. Did. No, I'm kidding.
So you know what I do though? I do have my coffee mug that says Fitz and Wit, but I only hold the Wit side up. So that way,
that's how you do it.
That's just throughout the podcast. I make sure that people realize that it's supposed to be Wit and Fitz.
Hey, it's all good. Like, you guys do a great job, and yeah, everybody's got to tune in. It's a great show.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. So I will let you go. I'm going to get to these super chats. I don't want to keep you anymore. But man, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. And, have fun. You want cold, you get cold. I'm in New York. I don't want any cold. Baby. So
I'm looking forward to my second round of snow angels this year. Appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. You take care. All right. Guys, Whit was awesome, and we're going to wrap up the show. I didn't want to keep him any longer. We got super chats I was not going to ignore. Obviously, I saw the chat was going crazy. You guys are awesome. A round of applause for Andrew Whitworth. I mean, come on. That was great. He's just awesome. But yeah, so real quick here before we wrap this up, I'm not going to miss your super chats. SoCal Ram 88, thank you for the 2. Big Wit, love you, man. Super Bowl champ. James Hernandez, thank you for the 2. Love you, Big Wit. Hoping Rams go all the way. Hank Woodmore, thank you for the 2. Great guest, Jake. You're moving up the ranks. Thank you, Hank. We got John Naylor. Thank you for the 5. Hawk fan here. Jake pulling in a Hall of Fame level guest. NFC Roundtable bragging rights, well deserved. Best Ram podcast when I want Ram insight. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Ruiz, appreciate the 2. Miss you, Big Wit. So glad your son saw you win. Angel Soto, or Angel Soto. Sorry if I butchered that. Thank you for the 10. Jake, should the Rams draft a quarterback, or do you think we'll trade for one when it comes time for Stafford to retire? It's interesting. I think when Stafford's time is up, I think they'll probably draft somebody, but I could see them sticking with Garoppolo, developing him as kind of like, not developing, but having him as a bridge quarterback, or going the route of one of the disgruntled young quarterbacks and giving them an opportunity. Somebody like a Trey Lance or a Zach Wilson or Mac Jones or somebody like that. That's how I kind of see it going, but thank you for the 10. Really appreciate that. Ruiz, thank you for the 2. Just all clapping. Appreciate that. And last but not least, Abe T, thank you for the 20. Jake, do you feel McVay should get Kupp more involved? No, because I think Kupp is involved. I think they need to get Whittington more involved. That's what I would say, just my honest take. Man, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad I got to all the super chats. Didn't want to shortchange any of you guys. Really appreciate you guys. And, we got another one. Jerry, thank you for, another one. Another one. Jerry, thank you for the 5. Big Wit into Rams house. Great podcast, Jake. Thank you, Jerry. Nicholas, thank you for the 5. It was nice of you, Jake, to have one of your fans come on to the channel to talk. Yeah, well, I mean, Wit is obviously more than like a fan. He is a legend, but I get what you're saying. Nicholas, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you. Man, this is awesome. Really enjoyed this. Appreciate Wit's time. He is a busy man. I am fully aware of that. And I really appreciate him, and his publicist for helping work this. It's not easy getting these done. Getting to talk to somebody like that during the heat of, he's calling a game this week, doing the what he's doing over at Amazon Prime as a host. And, in addition to that, it's the postseason, really busy. He's going to have way bigger shows asking him to come on. So I can't stress enough how appreciative of him I am for making this work. Matthew, thank you for the 10. Jake, in the big time with Big Wit. Don't forget about us little guys as you go into stardom. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. Ruiz, thank you for the 2. Live, let's effing go win. Yes, absolutely. So, all right, guys. That is going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was a very exclusive and special interview with Rams legend, Super Bowl champion, Walter Payton Man of the Year, 3-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowl, future Hall of Famer, co-host of the Fits and Wit podcast, but we're calling it the Wit and Fit podcast now, and the host of Amazon Prime Video Thursday Night Football. And you've probably seen him in a bunch of TV commercials, Andrew Whitworth. So hope you guys enjoy this. Really appreciate. Whoa. I was about to leave, and LA Canuck just dropped $100. Appreciate you. Keep up the great work, Carl in LA. Much appreciated. You guys are great. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Okay, you said I missed one? Oh, Deontay Smith. Okay. Should we trade for Tyreek Hill? I'm going to say no, because I think the Rams want to get younger and they don't want to take on another big contract like that. I personally would not. I think he wants to retire early. I'd be out. I also, call me old school, I know he's a great receiver, but I'm not dying to pick up somebody who literally just decided right after the game, while under contract, to go to the media and say that he was leaving. Like he's out. Like that's not a guy that I don't think he would jive with the we not me culture. That doesn't seem like somebody I would want. So anyway, LA Canuck, thank you for the hundo. Again, insane. And of course, Deontay Smith, thank you for the 5. You guys are awesome, for real. I have the best audience. I say it all the time. This community continues to grow. That's why it's so fun to grow this community, with you guys. I'm growing. You guys are growing. It's huge. So if you haven't already, be sure to like the video over on YouTube. If you're on Twitter and you haven't already, be sure to come on over to YouTube, look up Jake Ellenbogen, the channel. Also, it's on my Twitter, and subscribe. I do Rams content all the time. So if this is the first time you're seeing me and you're like, wow, I like this content, I've never seen this before. Well, that's because it pretty much always lives over on YouTube. I only go live on Twitter during interviews because there's that connection with the StreamYard, excuse me. So that's why. But yeah, so be sure to subscribe. Go tell somebody about this interview if you enjoyed it. I'm sure somebody else will. And that's going to do it. I normally don't like leaving, 3,000 plus people hanging like this. But that was the conclusion. I just decided to go a little bit longer to make, to have some time in there, for these super chats. So again, really appreciate you guys. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan. You can check out my brand new podcast that is dropping. It is The Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen. I'm going to drop that in the chat, and I'm going to head on out. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, folks. Later.